What more could you ask for? A matchup between two of the elites in the country. Good afternoon and welcome to the campus of St. Anthony's High School, Cy Donnelly Field. My name's Florival. Today, a matchup between the 6-2 Darien Blue Wave and the 7-1 St. Anthony's Friars. The Friars enter this contest 7-1 on the season. They won their last 5 after dropping a disappointing 10-5 contest versus Chaminade. Meanwhile, Darien Blue Wave, they enter this contest their second game in 3 days on Long Island. They hail from Connecticut. Monday, they lost to Manhasset 10-5. Today, looking for a return to Florival. They'll turn to the attackman number 4, Case Mathias, a player in 2 years, going to Duke University. Small in stature, only 5'6", but large in ability. Can create his own shot, and according to Coach Jeff Braymeyer, an electric player. St. Anthony's is looking for something to counter that future Duke Blue Devil. How about a future Virginia Cavalier? Defenseman Greg Danseglio, who according to Coach Keith Weiserick, is the best defenseman in St. Anthony's history. He's a player who runs about 6'1" in size, a player who they'll leave one-on-one on an island to equalize the opposing team's best attacker. So starters and first face-off coming up next is St. Anthony's versus Darien on MSG Varsity Lac Central. Temperatures dipping to the mid-50s. Showers expected later in the evening as we're ready for the first face-off between the Darien Blue Wave and the St. Anthony's Friars. Let's get you the starting lines for both squads. First for the visiting Darien Blue Wave from Connecticut. On the attack, Case Mathias, Richard Gregory, and Ben Preston. The midfield line goes Bobby Weaver, Graham Mabel, and John Magnuson. The close defense, Tony Britton, Christian Calderup, and Eric Pardon, the leader, going to Maryland. And in cage will be Dylan Torrey, who had a career-high 20 saves last time out versus Manhasset. Their face-off specialists, Clay Barker and the rope unit, J.P. Walsh and Scotty Walters will control the 38-inch poles. And with the long pole will be number 16, Bayless Stream, the head coach in his 28th year, 11th as the head coach on the varsity squad, Jeff Braymeyer. On the near side in the alley is working with it for the Friars as they move from right to left. Let's get you the stars for this Friars attack. Is on the right side now with the head of steam is Joe Lacascio as he fires one and connects. 1 minute into play, Lacascio puts a tally on for the Friars. It's 1-0.
Friars lead 1-0.
So St. Anthony's entering this contest 7-1 on the year. They won their last 5 contests. They start Christian Bernardo, Matt Chanenchuk, Sean McDonough, and Adam Pomper will split time on that first attack line. On the midfield, they'll go Charlie Rafa, Brian Sherlock, and as you just witnessed, Joe Lacascio, who netted his 8th goal on the season, looking for number 9. He'll bounce one and connect. Check that, Brian Sherlock. A mere minute and 6 seconds into play. It's a 2-0 St. Anthony's advantage.
2-0. Timeout, Blue Wave.
So not exactly as the Blue Wave had mapped out coming into this contest. Monday they were in action versus Manhasset. Fell behind in the first half 7-1 before ultimately dropping that contest 10-7. A game where head coach Jeff Braymeyer said they fell behind the 8-ball early on, and they were unable to recover. They made a late dash for it in the second half of play. They cut that deficit all the way down to 2 goals, but eventually would fall to the loss column, their second loss on the season. Let's get the rest of the starters for the St. Anthony's Friars. On the defense, Matt DeLea, Greg Danseglio, John Lynott, the goalkeeper, Kieran Burke, heading to North Carolina in a year from now. Charlie Rifle will handle the face-off duties. And the rope unit will be Nicholas Matai and Tim Stackpole. The head coach of the St. Anthony's Friars, Keith Weiserick, his 11th year as the head man of the varsity. Back in his playing days, he was a Midi graduate of St. John's University back in '86. So the face-off as Rafa takes a spill, and we're a minute and 10 seconds into play.
Number 2 with the ground ball.
St. Anthony's wearing their home white uniforms with black numbers. The Blue Wave, and you guessed it, blue uniforms. Going from left to right, they're on the road for the second time in 3 days. They make the trip down from Connecticut down to Long Island. So the Blue Wave will be a man down for 30 seconds. loose ball push.
Friars man up.
Technical foul, so here come the Friars looking to tack on. They're up 2-0 early on here in the first period of play. Lacrosse will get it started about 10 feet out the top of the offensive zone. He'll dish it on the right side. They'll play catch, top of the box, near side. Over to Bernardo, behind the cage. They'll swing it around. St. Anthony's, they like to get with it and move quickly as Lacrosse fires it and doesn't make it towards cage. It's deflected back towards the offensive end line. Shuffled back into the offensive zone. Roughly 10 seconds left on the man up for the Friars. Lacrosse in close, over to McDonough. He'll get a lane and connect. Goal number 3 of the day. A mere 2 minutes into play, 10-13. Friars lead 3-0.
Sean McDonough, number 23, gives the assist to Joe Lacasio, number 9. Friars lead 3-0.
Lacasio, the distributor, the initiator on offense early on, having a stellar first quarter of play. The Friars looking to come out on top over this tough Darien Blue Wave team, a team in the top 5 in the majority of preseason polls you can read, as once again the Friars will come up with another face-off, and that's what hindered this Darien squad in their last contest versus Manhasset. They were forced to play at the pace of Manhasset because they were losing a multitude of face-offs. And they're a team that likes to push it up and down the field on offense, but the head coach, Jeff Braymeyer, is saying they had to slow down the tempo because the defense was just on the field for extended time as a righty shot that gets a step, and it appears that one made on cage to the jubilation of the crowd, but it ricocheted behind the cage, so they'll start the clear. J.P. Walsh, the captain, working with the short stick midi. He'll go both ways, and he'll clear it up midfield. We have 9:26 to go here in the first period of play. Somewhat of a light mist coming over this field, roughly 50 degrees. Some thunderstorms expected later here in the evening from St. Anthony's High School in Huntington, New York. So Bobby Weaver will work with it on the left side. He'll dish it behind the cage. In close, here's Ben Preston looking to wheel his way in. He'll work it back to Matthias on his way to Duke University in 2 seasons. 5'6", small and fast. He'll shuffle it off into the offensive zone, and a delayed penalty is called. So the Blue Wave, trailing by 3 goals, 3-0 here, 8:50 to go in the first quarter of play, will have a 1-minute man-up opportunity to get on the scoreboard.
St. Anthony's penalty number 1.
This matchup, playoff fever sweeping the Long Island area, a matchup between the elite in Connecticut. Darien has won the last 6 state championships in Connecticut versus a squad in St. Anthony's, one of the elite in Long Island. A matchup for bragging rights between Connecticut and Long Island, a riverbed of hot talent going to a multitude of elite schools in the lacrosse world. As Darien now will dish it to Matthias straight away. Left side to Weaver. On the goal line extended on the far side. Preston was looking to wheel it in close on the crease. That one's loose now. Both teams vying for it on the far sideline, and the Blue Wave recuperate possession. Roughly 30 seconds remaining on the man up for the Blue Wave. They'll fire one. It won't make it towards cage, and an easy save for the goalkeeper, Kieran Burke. Burke heading to North Carolina, following in the footsteps of both of his brothers. As the Friars look to just clear this ball off their offensive end of the field, they'll get it across the timeline, but Kieran Burke, both of his brothers, Sean and Brian, both members of the Tar Heel family. Brian graduated back in 07. He was the defenseman for Joe Bresci's Tar Heel squad, and his brother Sean, currently a midfielder in his senior year for the North Carolina Tar Heels. Top 10 in the men's lacrosse world on the college D1 level. So straight away, here's Joe Lacasio. 1 assist, 1 goal. Big reason why they hold a 3-0 lead with 7.5 to go in the first period of play. He'll fire one underhanded. It'll be deflected, and they'll start the clear up ahead for the Blue Wave. Justin Coley on the left side with a long pole and connects. You don't see that every day. As Eric Parnon, the senior leader heading to Maryland, adds the first tally of the day. So it's a 3-1 Friars advantage. 7:15 to go in the first period of play. for Coach Jeff Braymeyer's squad. They want to play a fast, up-tempo style of lacrosse. They're a fast, athletic squad. Offensively, they don't necessarily have a defined QB in their system. They like to flow through all 6 offensive members, but thus far the game has been on the offensive end of St. Anthony's. As we're at the 7-minute mark here in the first quarter of play, it's a 3-1 Friars advantage. At midfield, as Case Mathias will use that speed to advance it into the offensive end of the field. First midfield line checking in for the Blue Wave. Blue Wave said in the preseason that they should be better at the 2-man game as they like to work some backside action, move the ball around in that 6-on-6 set. They'll control majority with Case Mathias, who gets a step and fires when backing up. For the Friars is Richard Gregory. But with a player such as Case Mathias, he runs roughly only 5'6". But he's a jitterbug and electric player, a player who scored 9 goals and tallied 3 assists in the championship game last year for the Darien Blue Wave. Behind the cage, working towards his left, is Ben Preston. He'll circle the crease. Excellent job by by Matt DeLea going one-on-one. Here's Preston. He'll look for a lane once more. Nothing doing. Ball loose in front of the crease. Great job there as Kieran Burke having none of it. Stopping it. We're under 6 minutes to go. The Friars leading 3-1. Across the midfield line is Tim Stackpole. Stackpole on the near side to Jack Griffin. Griffin will dish it towards a traditional midfielder, Brian Cregan. Excellent check out of the stick of Cregan by Corey Epley. Early on, pay attention to the Blue Wave clearing. They practice on a field in Connecticut where they don't necessarily get the allotment of a full 110-yard field, so they struggle. They only get 30 minutes of practice time per day of practicing clears, and early on in the season, that's something that's been one of their hindrances, one of the things where Manhasset really took advantage. They've rided hard and forced a number of turnovers their last contest versus this Blue Wave squad. Behind the cage for the Blue Wave, here's Tim Murphy. Mathias threatening with a screen. And a deuces set. Near side, Murphy still controlling. Straight away, top of the box. Errant pass. Preston will scoop it up roughly midfield. 3-1 advantage for the Friars with 4:45 to go here in the first quarter of play. Here's Mathias willing in close and scoring. Case Mathias finding a lane and going top shelf. The diminutive Mathias puts on the second goal of the day, so back-to-back goals for the Blue Wave. It's a 3-2 lead for the Friars. 4:32 remaining in the first quarter of play.
Friars lead 3-2.
Off the face-off, the Blue Wave with possession once more, and they'll move with it quickly. Here's Ryan Straub working with it behind the cage at X. The long pole, Clay Barker doing an excellent job. You'll see some time on the face-off wings. Big part of this Friars face-off unit. Here's Preston. Behind the cage, it's Preston and DeLea, one-on-one. Matt DeLea will go both ways. A natural lefty heading off to Binghamton as a shot fired and won't even make it towards Burke as it's deflected. Excellent job as Burke is one of the best in the country at stopping long-range shots. A player who, according to Keith Weisrick, is a special player. A once-in-a-generation player with quick hands, a good outside shot. He's actually the only junior to start for Keith Weisrick in his tenure here in his 11-plus years as the varsity head coach. It'll be Locascio near side, in close, and Brian Sherlock trying to bounce one in. He couldn't make it in cage, so 3:13 to go. The Friars hold a 3-2 advantage. Friars jumped out to a 3-0 advantage. Mere 2 minutes into play, back-to-back goals from the Darien Blue Wave, and that's where we stand. It's a 3-2 Friars lead 3 minutes to go here in the first quarter of play, excuse me. Here's John Magnuson getting a step, getting in close, head deep, firing, and scoring. John Magnuson, the fourth different score for the Friars. They lead 4-2, 2:52 to go in the first stanza. That was all Magnuson. He took it himself, circled the crease, got a lane in that fast, athletic, offensive Friar attack. Shining early on a cool evening here in Huntington, New York. And off the face-off, Friars successful once more. They'll move it into the offensive end of the field. Here's Adam Pomper, and goal number 5. They strike for back-to-back goals in a matter of seconds. It's a 5-2 advantage. 2:43 remaining in the first quarter. Both teams have similar strengths coming into their contest. They feature strong goaltending. Dylan Torrey for the Darien Blue Wave and Kieran Burke for the St. Anthony's Friars. Both teams senior leadership on defense, strong play on the rope unit, and very talented attack lines. And the Friars have shown their offensive ability as an explosion as they go back-to-back to respond to the 2 goals scored by the Blue Wave. And in close is Nick Albarati. He'll move it towards the right alley as we inch closer to the 2-minute mark. 5-2, Friars leading. Friars will dodge from the right set. They'll swing it straight away. Left side. Here's Bernardo getting in close, getting his hands free, firing, deflected, and back to the Friars. 1:50 on the clock now. St. Anthony's up 5-2. Circling the crease on the near side, here's Adam Pomper. Looking to go back-to-back. He had the last goal. It's been Pomper and Magnuson with the last 2 scores for the Friars. Straight away, they'll dodge. Here's Jack Griffin. He'll get it in close. Good opportunity there for Pomper. Couldn't get that one on cage, as Matt Chanenchuk was backing that one up. So the Friars will resume possession with 1:25 to go. Excellent athleticism by Bernardo to save that one from rolling towards the midfield line, and they'll move it back into their offensive end of the field. Here's Griffin on their side, behind the cage to Chanenchuk. He'll draw the long pole. Eric Parnan headed to Maryland a year from now. Chanenchuk has that ball dislodged from his stick.
1 minute.
But he'll recoup possession, and Griffin will give it a dodge on the left side. Draws the slide. He'll dish it straight away, top of the box. Nick Alabrati back up top to Brandon Hurley. Hurley loses the ball. A little bit of a sloppy possession for the Friars as there's 50 seconds remaining on the clock. They hold a 5-2 first quarter advantage. Here's Bernardo with some shifty moves, looking for a lane. Gets hounded. He'll swing it behind the cage to Pomper, who'll toe that end line and keep it in bounds with 30-second extended possession here for the Friars. And an excellent job of digging in is Tony Britton, the long pole, as they'll move it up the field with 10 seconds on the clock. That one out of bounds on their sideline, turned over, and back to the St. Anthony's Friars. So St. Anthony's will have 16 seconds on the clock. They hold a 3-goal advantage, riding hard on that clear attempt, and they force the turnover. Here's Locascio. He'll start us off here with 16 seconds to go in the first quarter. Locascio clearing out a lane, looking for some room to operate. He'll dodge right side. That one goes behind the cage. 5 seconds remaining. They've got to move it in quickly. They'll just pull it down, and they'll take a 5-2 advantage heading into the second quarter of play. St. Anthony's back-to-back goals to wrap up the first quarter of play. They lead 5-2 after 1. Welcome back. Second quarter of play slated to get underway momentarily. St. Anthony's leading Darien 5-2. First face-off between Charlie Raffa and Clay Barker as the team switch sides, and Lacascio looking for his second tally of the day. A bouncer deflected. Excellent job by Dylan Torrey. He'll be going to Quinnipiac next season. Tori excels in a clear game and the outlet pass. And good stick-to-stick passing as the wind picking up here at Cy Donnelly Field on the campus of St. Anthony's High School. For the majority of the first quarter, the ball was possessed in St. Anthony offensive zones. And early on the first quarter of play, the Blue Wave looking to establish an offensive mindset as they attack straight away with Bobby Weaver, who will get inside the middle of that offensive zone. A big game between two teams. The first time these two squads have ever met up. It's Case Mathias looking for a lane. Good pass in close. Weaver unable to come up with the ball as that one rolls towards the near sideline. And checked out of the stick, and Mathias will get it back into play. 10:45 to go here in the first half. 5-2, Friars leading over the Blue Wave. Preston looking to circle the crease. Excellent job by Matt DeLea. But both squads prior to this season had not met up. Two elite squads in the nation. They were looking to meet up the past couple years, but both coaches had a fairly respectable relationship with one another, but they just couldn't get an open date to face one another. And this season, a couple teams dropping off of each team's schedule open up this date. So these two squads meet for the first time as a centering feed and a shot put home. Friars strike for their third goal of the day off the stick of Tim Murphy. It's 5-3, 10:21 remaining in the first half of play.
Friars lead 5-3.
So they'll switch up the face-off man for the Friars. Brandon Conroy will give it a go out there with Clay Barker. And on the wing, it's Tim Stackpole with the long pole. Coming up with the ground ball on the wing. And the Friars will sub in their first midfield line, but both squads, as I alluded to earlier, have not scrimmaged earlier. And before this contest, playing a JV contest, so big-time matchup on Long Island. And to get a sense of how big this matchup is, you have alum of the school, John Antonitis, a face-off man for Hofstra University, coming back home. Graduate of St. Anthony's, a shot fired on cage and backing up on the Friars as they'll keep possession of the ball. John Antonitis having a stellar year for the Hofstra Pride at the face-off X. Back home for this contest is a big game as the Friars look to advance to 8-1 on the season. Couple more games, they'll have that big rematch versus Chaminade. On the near sideline is Sean McDonough. McDonough had the third goal of the day for the Friars. He fires that one, and that one goes to the far sideline. Out of bounds. And back to the Blue Wave of Darien. The Friars, they've scored in bunches. Their first three goals came 2 minutes into play. It was Lucasio, Sherlock, and McDonough going back-to-back-to-back before the Blue Wave would respond with Parnon and Mathias scoring 2 goals before Magnuson and Pomper will tally 2 more. The latest damage done by Tim Murphy of Darien, and that's where we stand. It's 5-3, 9 minutes to go here in the first half of play. Behind the cage is Ben Preston. His Preston first year as a starter, good size as the ball loose near the top of the box on the far sideline. Excellent job by Bobby Weaver to come up with the ground ball. Preston in his senior year, good size at 6'3", working himself up the pecking order at Darien, a school where you can be as talented as the seniors, but there's a certain level of expectation, and the seniors have a stranglehold over the starting positions at this hotbed of lacrosse talent. Circling in close, centering, feed, underhand, stop, turned away by Kieran Burke. Burke giving you a glimpse as to why Joe Brescia is looking forward to welcoming the young man at North Carolina. Greg Danseglio will swing it into the offensive end of the field. And a successful clear for the Friars as they'll look to tack on to their 5-3 advantage. 8 minutes to go in the first half of play. Joe Lacascio, player heading to Maryland University, is one of the main quarterbacks for this Friars team. 30 goals a year ago, an All-American a year ago. Go-to guy on their midfield line. Last year they lost the output of Tom Schraber, who went to Princeton University, and Lacrosse, a player who stepped up and more than filled the void. Far sideline, ball being vied for by both squads. Nicholas Matei up with it momentarily. Refs blow the whistle. Appears it was a loose ball push. So 7:28 to go in the first half. 5-3 Friars lead. Blue Wave looking to cut into that deficit, cut it in half. As the Blue Wave attempt to clear this ball, they struggled on clears this year. Coach Jeff Braymeyer says that they have a tendency to want to push the ball up the field and maybe force the issue a little bit too much. Hard to blame them. They have a fast, young, athletic offense which loves to play that up-tempo style, keep it moving. But composure, a key point of emphasis for Coach Braymeyer and his squad. His midfield is still learning under fire, but it's a very talented unit. Just coming into their own as they control behind the cage. Matthias threatening a pick, circling the crease. Here's Tim Murphy on the far sideline. He'll swing it on the far. Here's Bobby Weaver. Excellent job on defense by the Friars, collapsing the crease as they lead 5-3 with 6.5 to go in the second quarter of play. Good on-ball presence by the Friars as Darien has struggled to find a lane. Richard Gregory is just going back and forth, looking for some wiggle room. He's a lefty sniper and a captain on the Darien hockey team. Here's Graham Mabel. He'll move towards his left, has a lane, bounces one. Burke was in excellent position to turn that one away, but backing up is Darien as they'll keep possession of the ball. Here's Matthias, centering feed. That one makes it towards the top of the attack box. Here's Weaver. He'll start his dodge from about 5 feet out that attack box. Weaver working on Billings. Back behind the cage. He'll swing it near side, working his Matthias. Early on, it's been Danseglio versus Matthias. Matthias going to Duke, Danseglio to Virginia, a precursor of a great ACC battle to come in the upcoming years as Danseglio with an excellent check on the 5-6 Matthias to the jubilation of the crowd. And the Friars will initiate the clear. Danseglio, one of the vocal leaders of this Friars squad, a beast, according to the coaching staff, and the best defenseman to come through the hallways of St. Anthony's High School. 5 minutes to go here in the first half. Friars leading 5-3. They've dominated possession of the ball offensively and defensively. Great on-ball presence as offensively, the Blue Wave have not been able to find any wiggle room. And a timeout by the Friars as they'll diagram a play. My name is Stephen Florival. We're on the campus of St. Anthony's High School at Cy Donnelly Field for a matchup between two of the elites in the country. It's the St. Anthony's Friars, 7-1 on the season, and the Darien Blue Wave from Connecticut, 6-2 on the year. They hail from Connecticut. They're down on Long Island for the second time in 3 days, something which is not a concern of this coaching staff. St. Anthony's is currently on their spring break, so they don't have classes. Maybe a little bit of advantage of not having to go to class as well as play a lacrosse game later in the evening. Meanwhile, this Darien Blue Wave team was in class earlier today, traveled down to Long Island for the second time in 3 days. They're not on spring break, but according to the coaching staff, the travel isn't an issue. They face against teams out of state. Being in one of the elite teams in Connecticut, they've got to travel out of state many times to get the top matches for their resume boosters. But according to Coach Jeff Braymeyer, travel isn't an issue. We're a squad where it's been a challenging road as far as they've fought at Haverford, a 15-0 squad, nationally ranked as preseason number 1, playing recently Manhasset. But they're looking to improve off of a disappointing 10-7 defeat to Manhasset, a game in which the coaches will say their team showed up for one half of lacrosse, and that was the second half. In the first half, they trailed 7-1, and in this first half, versus the Friars, they trailed 5-3. In close and finding No room as Brian Sherlock, who fired one on cage. Backing it up is Christian Bernardo. So Bernardo will move towards his left. Looking for a player on the wing. Near side is Locascio. Locascio, righty dodge, fires one high over the cage, out of bounds towards the far sideline. So the Friars leading 5-3 with 4:24 to go here in the second quarter of play. Only one tally here in the second quarter. That one was off the stick of Tim Murphy for the Darien Blue Wave. Centering feed, in close. Unable to do anything with Brian Sherlock as the Blue Wave doing an excellent job of just collapsing the paint. Excellent cross-field pass by Tony Britton as they'll move it into the offensive zone. In close, off the post. Eric Pardon with a long pole, unable to put it home. A frantic pace up and down the field. Friars holding a 2-goal advantage. Under 4 minutes to go. A combined 7 goals in the first quarter of play. In the second, Tim Murphy's tally at the 10:21 mark was the only score here in the second quarter of play.
Weaver the ground ball.
Bobby Weaver will swing it off to John Magnuson on the left side. Magnuson will play catch with Weaver. Trailing towards his right. He'll swing it and can't connect with Matthias. Possibly a momentary lapse as Matthias was unable to come with that feed on the far sideline alley. So the Friars will look to clear the ball back into their offensive end of the field. It is a matchup between both squads. You'll see a lot of defensive intensity from both squads. We pinpointed Greg Danseglio, a player who will be heading to Virginia, but he's also joined by several other talented players on his defensive line. Matt DeLea, only in his senior year, but a player who brings great energy. He's joined as well by John Lynott, and a player who will go both ways in Charlie Rafa. Here's Rafa now on the top of the box, taking a shot and firing one out of bounds behind the cage. So play set to resume with 2.5 minutes remaining here in the first half of play. Christian Bernardo will get us started off as they'll dish it straight away. Lacascio was thinking about it, but he pulled it back down. So Lacascio, he'll swing it left side. Here's Sherlock getting a lane, fire one. Tillen Dory turning it away. Ground ball back to St. Anthony's as Pomper will swing it to the far sideline. Here's Sean McDonough looking to circle in close. Turned away by Dylan Torrey again. The clear has been a bugaboo for the Darien Blue Wave, but they'll get it over the midfield line, and they'll call a timeout. 1:51 to go in the first half. Darien trailing 5-3 to the St. Anthony's Friars. The motto for this Blue Wave team, simple, 7-11. They want their 7th consecutive state title. In the year 2011, they've won the previous 6 state championships from Connecticut. Last year, they went 19-3 on the season. Excellence has been a staple of the Jeff Braymeyer era. And off the timeout, he'll look for some execution as they trail 5-3 with 1:40 to go in the first half of play. On the far side is Tim Murphy. Near side, here's Bobby Weaver. Case Matthias will control with it. Mr. Electric straight away. He'll spin. Pair of spin moves, keeps his footing. Fires that one over the head of a teammate, and it rolls out of bounds. Case Matthias doing a little bit too much on that possession. So a turnover, and the Friars will get a chance to get their first goal of this second quarter of play. We had 7 combined scores in the first quarter. Tim Murphy was the only scorer in the second quarter of play, and it's a 5-3 St. Anthony's lead over the Blue Wave of Darien. 1:15 to go. St. Anthony's will swing it on the left side in the alley and move it into the offensive zone. Here's Adam Pomper behind the cage. Moves towards his right. And St. Anthony's will get a timeout of their own. They lead 5-3, 1:10 to go. A minute 10 till the halftime locker room break. Darien trailing St. Anthony's 5-3. My name is Stephen Florival from Cy Donnelly Field on the campus of St. Anthony's High School. Somewhat of a light, foggy mist falling on the field, making footing a little bit suspect at the moment. St. Anthony's looking to end the first half break with a bang. They scored the first 3 goals of the game, and it's been in large part midfielder Joe Locascio, who's served as the offensive catalyst. He added both his 8th goal on the season and his 12th assist on the season as the Friars lead 5-3. Behind the cage, they'll swing it to Bernardo. Near side to McDonough. Here's Channing-Chuck. Channing-Chuck will just dish it off to Sherlock, who will make his way in close. Centering feed. Behind the cage, out of bounds. Sherlock was looking for Pomper. They couldn't make the connection. With 40 seconds on the clock, the Friars looking to hit that locker room break with their 2-goal advantage at the moment. Here's Darien. They're looking to slice this deficit in half. Being hounded from the cage is Dylan Torrey, as the Blue Wave are having some difficulty getting the ball up the field. Torrey on the near side, unable to be corralled by Colderup. The defenseman Christian Colderup unable to get a snag of that ball. So Brian Sherlock with 20 seconds on the clock looking to add some damage onto that 5-3 advantage. Here's Channing-Chuck on the right elbow. He'll swing it straight away to Locascio on the far side over to Sean McDonough. McDonough, goal line extended on the far side with 6 seconds. Got to make a move quickly. McDonough will switch it back to Locascio. Long-range shot will be deflected by Torrey. And that's how the first half of play would end. At the halftime break, it's St. Anthony's 5, the Darien Blue Wave 3. And welcome back to Cy Donnelly Field on the campus of St. Anthony's High School. The halftime score, St. Anthony's 5, the Darien Blue Wave 3. First half of play, start off with a bang for St. Anthony's. Joe Locascio, 50 seconds into play, getting a start with a beautiful right-handed shot on the right side to get the action started. He would then initiate the offense, setting up his teammates on the next goal. Brian Sherlock would get into the action a mere 10 seconds later. Following that, roughly 30 seconds later, Sean McDonough would make it a 3-0 St. Anthony's advantage in the first quarter of play. Darien, they would respond. Eric Parnon would chip in the first goal of the day for the Blue Wave, and Case Mathias, the future Duke Blue Devil, would create for himself and tally the second goal of the day. Back-to-back goals from Darien was followed by back-to-back goals by the Friars, as Greg Magnuson and Adam Pomper would tally 2 goals in the span of 10 seconds. Second quarter, a little bit of a dry spell from both squads, as Tim Murphy the only scoring. And that's where we stand, 5-3 with 10:21. It was a 5-3 score at the 10:21 point. And the final 10:21 of Lacrosse was scoreless for both sides. First face-off of the second half scheduled to kick off momentarily. It's St. Anthony's and Darien on Lac Central MSG Varsity. It was at halftime of their last contest. The Blue Wave trailed going to the locker room break before a late rally would be to no avail. This time they're looking to rally back from a 2-goal deficit and come out victorious. They're 6-2 on the season. And Clay Barker will be joined at the face-off by Nicholas Mate. First half of play witnessed St. Anthony's control most of the face-offs, and the first face-off is raked into the offensive side of the field for Darien. And they come up with the ball. It's J.P. Walsh, and he loses possession of the ball. So Locascio, head of steam, moving down the left sideline.
Joe Locascio, number 9, gets the clear.
He's had a strong evening as Lacrosse, the athletic, tough, gutty, great shooter for this offensive squad, gets the first possession of the second half over to the Friars sideline. Is Lacrosse. He has a lane. He'll pull it back down and swing it straight away over to Sherlock. Sherlock will have Bernardo on his right, and Bernardo will start his righty dodge from the right elbow. He'll move towards the goal line extended. Find that one on Cage. No, they won't call it a shot. They'll call it a pass. And it'll roll out of bounds, so possession will move over to Darien, who trail 2 goals at the moment, but they're a team which can put up goals in a hurry as they'll move it quickly into the offensive end of the field. Scotty Waters will clear this ball and check off the field as he'll swing a pass in the near side alley off to Richard Gregory. Here's Preston behind the cage. Preston working on Matt DeLea. Here's Graham Mabel. Mabel was the igniter in the comeback in Manhasset 2 days ago, which came up short. Coach Jeff Braymeyer said he has a tendency of forcing things out there on the field and making things happen and getting his team kick-started. They trail by 2 goals, 5-3 with 10:10 to go in the third quarter as Mabel will send one over to Weaver on the left side, and Weaver, nothing doing. Burke was in an excellent position as that one was backed up by the Blue Wave, so they'll keep possession. Here's Preston behind the cage. That one intercepted by Locascio. Locascio intercepting in the one-man clear the other end of the field. So 5-3 with 9:55 to go in the third quarter. Circling the crease is Pomper, looking for a lane. Nothing doing. Ball still loose. And a holding called on the Blue Wave. So the Friars will regain possession. Here's Nick Alabrati on the right side, losing the ball. Rolling towards midfield. And Brian Sherlock with the grown ball. A little bit of a scrum from both sides, and that witnesses Darien take it the opposite way. So Darien looking to settle down the pace and get into their offensive flow. It's been the effort of Matt DeLea, Greg Danseglio, and John Lynott. That close defense unit for the Friars has stalemated this Darien attack, a unit which puts up roughly 12 to 13 goals per game on the season. Case Mathias will dodge from the far side of the field and circle the crease towards the near side. 5-6 circling the crease. The speedy attacker will center a feed, and that one's turned away by Burke. Back out top. Here's Murphy. Murphy had the last score of the day. That was roughly over 14 minutes of lacrosse ago from these two explosive squads. Here's Graham Mabel on the left side. Back to Murphy straight away. Murphy will back out and start his dodge. Murphy on the left side to the far side. He'll move it to Preston, who's moving it towards the near sideline. You can just tell this Friar defense, no holes in his defense, as they're doing an excellent job in sliding and collapsing the paint, as the Friars have been taking a multitude of shots from long range. Here's Mabel, left side. The matchup is Mabel on Stackpole, and Mabel dish it near side to Weaver. Off to Mathias, looking to move before he can pick up possession of the ball. Checked out of his stick, and towing the end line and keeping it in bounds, as the Friars has some roughhousing from both sides as the ball's loose at midfield. And an excellent job by Nicholas Matei staying with it and moving into the offensive end. Straight away to Sherlock on the right side. That one's fired off of the chest protector of Dylan Torrey. Shannon Chuck with the shot. An up and down pace. Both teams fighting for possession of the ball. A 5-3 score. I'm not sure this is exactly how the experts predicted this one. 5-3 midway through the third quarter of play. 7:26 to be exact. We've gone over 14 minutes of lacrosse without a goal. Both squads tallied 7 in the first quarter alone. But since that point, both teams have gone cold from the field, and in large part it's been the defensive effort of both squads as the Friars will be a man up. Far sideline, giving it a ride, and that went out of bounds. Matt Chenenchuk firing when that went out of bounds towards the near sideline and backed up. So the Friars looking to tack on to their 2-goal advantage. Goals at a premium after the first period of play. Straight away to Locascio, near side. McDonough, he'll swing it back towards the goal line, extended to Bernardo. Being chased out towards that end line, back to Bernardo. Roughly 20 seconds on the man up for the Friars. Here's Griffin, back to Bernardo. Fires a shot, righty. That won't go behind the cage and out of bounds. And they'll say that the Blue Wave were closest to the ball. So a good job on the penalty kill for Darien. Just trying to keep that Blue Wave squad into this contest as the offense has struggled and the clear game has struggled for Darien as the goalkeeper, Dylan Torrey, is being hounded behind the cage as he'll just launch one towards the far sideline. It'll roll out of bounds and possession back to St. Anthony's. Superb job on the ride as they force Dylan Torrey, the goalkeeper, to make a low percentage pass. Roughly 30 feet away, off of his back foot. And a turnover back to the Friars. Momentarily, the Friars are still a man up. That one doesn't make it towards Gage. Upfield pass to Scotty Waters, who will move it in the right side and swing it to Richard Gregory. Richard Gregory will head to Union for his lacrosse on the collegiate level. A midi last year, moved towards the attack line. Some versatility from the senior Richard Gregory as Ben Preston now controlling with the ball. Preston will take a pick from Gregory. He'll move towards the far side. Preston, towering 6'3" size, swings it straight away to Weaver. Near side is Timmy Murphy. Last goal of this contest was at 10:31 point back in the second quarter, and Timmy Murphy looking for another tally. Nothing doing as the short stick midi. Joe Locascio going both ways, doing an excellent job. Here's Locascio step for step with Murphy. Murphy, no option but to swing it on the far side to Graham Mabel. 5:14 to go here from Cy Donnelly Field. It's a 5-3 Friars lead. And that one is checked out of the stick of Graham Mabel. He was looking to give it a three-quarter angle shot. Nothing doing, and Tim Stackpole will take it the other way. Stackpole over to Sherlock. Over to Bernardo, in close, and a missed opportunity there as Nicholas Matei couldn't come up with that feed. So 4:50 to go in the third quarter of play. It's a 5-3 Friars lead. Here's Locascio going both ways, seeing extended minutes. Coaching staff saying they don't like to use him on both sides of the field, but his offensive ability, his defensive ability is a big reason why he'll be a mainstay and a player at the University of Maryland next year, in 2 years, which fans will come accustomed to enjoying watch play. Locascio, roughly 5'11" in size. He's in close, middle of the box. He'll back it out. 4:13 to go now in the third quarter of play. It's a 5-3 St. Anthony's lead. Here's Sherlock, called the re-energizer bunny by his squad, heading to North Carolina in a couple of years. On the far, in close. That one is deflected as Chenenchuk had a look. It appears that one hit off the post, but Torrey was in excellent position, and now they'll swing it up the field. Kicked forward by Scotty Waters. Ball loose, and appears that St. Anthony's now has the ball at the 3:39 mark, and Sherlock will move it quickly. He'll spin in close, and he lost possession of the ball. A frantic pace by both squads as this second half of play has witnessed 8.5 minutes of scoreless lacrosse. But hard fought intensified lacrosse by both sides as the defensive effort is there as Ben Preston controls behind the cage and will circle the crease on Matt DeLea. Here's Preston now. He'll look to give it a look. He'll look to spin, loses his footing, has the ball checked out of his stick, and a whistle blows. And it appears they'll call a loose ball push on the Friars. Blue Wave 6-2 on this contest. Look to regain their form after dropping a tough 10-7 decision to Manhasset on Monday evening. The reality for Jeff Brayermeyer's Darien squad is that they're one of the elite in the country, and they face off against the elite of the country as Preston sends one over the head of the 5'6" Matthias. That's now 3 or 4 times as we've seen that pass to Matthias being launched over his head. It's been a misty, windy day here in St. Anthony's High School. The wind took a hold of that ball and took it out of bounds. So a good pass upfield, and the Friars will move it into their offensive end.
Number 4, the clear.
Here's Jack Griffin, right side, and they'll loop it around at the 2:20 mark. No scoring here in the second half of play. Friars struck for 3 goals to open the contest. 2 minutes in, they found themselves up 3-0. Right now at the 2-minute mark in the third quarter, they find themselves leading 5-3. Here's Griffin behind the cage on the far sideline. He'll dish it on the right side to Bobby Weaver. That's Brandon Hurley controlling on the far side. Here's Shannon Chuck circling around. Draws a slide. He'll pull it back down and swish it off to McDonough. Sean McDonough already a goal early on the day. That was his 19th on the season. He loses the ball, and the long pole, Britton up with it now, and will swing it up the field. Tony Britton, a superb job there. He'll be going to Cornell to play his lacrosse. He has phenomenal one-on-one skills defensively, and defensively, it's been all Kieran Burke as he stalemates another shot attempt. Here's Preston behind the cage. This Darien team just uncomfortable all afternoon long. They've been seeing Friars up close and personal, and Matt DeLea forces another turnover. 1 minute remaining in the third period of play. It's a 5-3. St. Anthony's lead, defense leading the charge. A blue-collar game of lacrosse, ground balls, defense, and extra shoving from both sides. As that one turnover back to Darien with 47 seconds to go here in the third stanza of play. My name's Stefan Florival as Matthias moving in quickly, and that one doesn't make it towards the cage. Wide left as Matthias had a pair of defenders on his left hip, fired overhead with the right. And went out of bounds towards the far sideline, but the Blue Wave back it up. They trail by 2 with 40 seconds to go in the third quarter. Matthias will dash with it from the far side. Near side to Weaver. Hounding man-to-man defense, giving little wiggle room for the Blue Wave to operate with. Here's Matthias looking to just carve a lane and a head-on shot from about 15 feet away. A rocket scored. Graham Mabel cuts the deficit in half. It's 5-4. 15 seconds remaining in the third quarter of play.
Goal number 22, Graham Mabel. The assist number 7, Ben Preston. Friars lead 5-4.
That's Graham Mabel, once again, the igniter for his Blue Wave squad. And he cuts into the deficit as they trail by 1 with under 10 seconds to go, and they'll have to move it quickly, looking for the equalizer. Here's Matthias. He's the speed demon. Fires a right-handed shot out of bounds towards the near sideline. Kept in play. That one's fired on cage. And a third period of play which sees little offensive production ends with a 5-4 score. St. Anthony's holding a 1-goal advantage, 12 minutes of lacrosse remaining. One goal is all that separates these two squads. St. Anthony's leading the Blue Wave of Darien by a 5-4 margin, and it's been the defensive effort which has led the charge. Goaltender Kieran Burke having a splendid afternoon, as well as Greg Danseglio, a close defenseman on his way to the University of Virginia, and Dom Starja is proud as he stalemated a future Duke Blue Devil and Case Mathias thus far early on, as this Blue Wave squad has had a hard time finding any offensive opportunities. They move quickly from right to left, and they'll bounce one off the post. Clay Barker off the face-off had a great opportunity, just couldn't find Twine. Ball loose at midfield, scooped up. 30 seconds into play, and the fourth quarter is resembling the third quarter of play. Loose ball push, it appeared, was called on St. Anthony, so possession will go over to Darien as they'll swing it quickly into the offensive zone, and they'll fire one way out of bounds high. J.P. Walsh losing some accuracy on that shot. So Ben Preston will get a start on the far side. 11:15 to go in the fourth quarter, play in a contest which has witnessed both teams combined for 9 goals on the evening. 1 in the second and 1 in the third. There's a great deke there and a lefty lane open, but he'll pull it back down as Tim Murphy was thinking about giving that one a ride. Here's Richard Gregory, quiet on the evening. Scoreless, and he now has the equalizer. It's a 5-5 tally. 10:50 to go in the fourth quarter of play. Richard Gregory, number 5, with the 5th goal of the day. And we're tied up at 5s. There's a big face-off, and it's scooped on the wing by Bailistrine with the long pole. They'll move quickly within the offensive end of the field as a lefty shot out of bounds, fired off the stick of Eric Parnan. The defenseman, not known for his offensive ability, but found an opportunity as Case Mathias and Danseglio. Still going back and forth, those two. A precursor of a big-time matchup to come down the line. So here's Graham Mabel. He'll dish on the left side, off to Murphy. Couldn't come up with it. Burke traps it in his stick. And Kieran Burke, recovering from that last goal he gave up, a player who the coaching staff says it takes a lot of moxie and poise to have a player who can start in his junior year in cage for the Friars. Burke, a player following the long lineage of great goaltenders for the Friars. For him, Grant Zimmerman, another North Carolina goaltender. He was an All-American a couple years ago back in 2008. And Kieran Burke doing his best to match those efforts as it's a 5-5 tie here, 9.5 to go here in the fourth quarter. Here's Locascio, has the ball in his stick, looking at him do some damage. Spinning in the lane, losing the ball, and picked up by the Blue Wave. It's Tony Britton with the long pole. 9:05 to go in the fourth quarter play, 5-all tie. It's strength versus strength. Both teams known for splendid defensive play, strong goaltending, great close defense, and strong rope units, and that's what we've seen, a blue-collar ground ball machine game as Bobby Weaver would just methodically work that ball on the near alley. Here's Weaver working on Sherlock. Weaver will cut back towards his left, getting close. Fire off the chest of Kieran Burke. The quick hands of Kieran Burke turns it away, and they'll turn it back over to the Blue Wave. Graham Mabel will move it into the offensive zone. So right after Kieran Burke turns away a great opportunity, they relinquish possession right back to Darien with 8 minutes to go in a 5-all tie. Case Mathias, 1 goal early on. That came with about 4.5 minutes to go in the first quarter of play. It's Mathias versus Dan Seglio once more. Mathias centering feed behind the back shot by Weaver goes high over the cage. Weaver getting fancy with it, just trying to get it past the reach of Kieran Burke. Here's Case Mathias. He loses the ball. Ball checked out of his stick by Dan Seglio, and a delayed penalty will put the Friars a man up. So an opportunity for the Friars to do double damage. If they can score, they'll have a man up. And Christian Bernardo has it in his stick. He'll roll towards his right, attacking the crease. He'll just fire that one towards the chest of Dylan Torrey. So it's 7:24 to go in the fourth quarter of play. A crucial man up for the Friars. With this game knotted up at 5s. 1 minute slash. At the 7:24 point. Possible changing point in this contest is the Friars have a 1 minute man up. Here's Channing Chuck subbing back in with the man up unit to Locascio. 2-man game on the top of the box. Back to Channing Chuck. Off to Locascio. He'll pull it back down right side. Here's Locascio with the lane. He'll pull it down. He'll move in close. He'll fire and connect. Joe Locascio on the offensive end. His second goal of the game. St. Anthony's leads 6-5. 7:03 remaining in the contest. The headline player for the Friars, Joe Locascio. 2 goals, an assist, and an equally excellent effort on the defensive end of the field. As the two-way midi on his way to Maryland in 2 years, doing an excellent job regaining the lead for the Friars. That one will go behind the cage and out of bounds.
Gregory, number 5, the shooter.
So the Friars looking for a quick response to that Locascio goal, and they get it. Ben Preston rallies back the Blue Wave. Game knotted up at 6s, 6:41 remaining.
Ben Preston, the goal is unassisted, ties the game at 6.
The 6th different score for Darien, as Ben Preston responds to the Joe Locascio shot. Roughly 8 seconds following that tally.
Blue Wave ball.
And the Blue Wave, off of an infraction on the face-off, now have an opportunity to jump out to their first advantage of the evening. Mist still coming down at a slow pace. It's somewhat of a little fog, wet mist coming down on the field. Footing not an issue this evening, as Bobby Weaver will swing at top of the box off to Graham Mabel. 6:15 on the clock, 6-all the tie. Mabel straight away. We'll play a 2-man game with Tim Murphy at the top of the box. 2-3-1, one behind the cage. And Murphy will start his dodge from about 10 yards outside of the top of the attack box. Here's Murphy moving towards his right. Long range shot by Mabel. Wide left, backing up is Ben Preston, and Preston will get us started once again. 6'3", Preston cutting in close and turned away. Kieran Burke having none of it. 6-all, 5:42 remaining in the fourth quarter. Behind the cage is Gregory. Gregory circling, submarine shot, rolling towards cage, and not finding the back of the net. They're changing planes on Burke. And the junior goaltender doing an excellent job adjusting as Sherlock moving into the offensive end of the field. And now Locascio and Sherlock will swing it back and forth top of the box. Matt Chanenchuk subbing in on the near sideline. Chanenchuk, an All-American a year ago. Here's Locascio. He'll move towards his left. Swing it back to Sherlock. Here's the Energizer. Sherlock looking to back his way in. Nothing doing. 4:47 remaining. Both teams tied up at 6, excuse me. Here's Locascio, left side. Fretting in his left hand. And a dodge from the far sideline and moving in close. Shot fire on cage, deflected. Turned away. Dylan Torrey doing an excellent job to match the effort of Kieran Burke. Roughly 80 yards away. Back and forth affair. And here comes J.P. Walsh with the long pole. Is Walsh, and that one is off point and out of bounds. As Walsh looking to send it over to a teammate, but footing appeared to be an issue on that possession for the Blue Wave. 4:10 to go in the fourth quarter of play. It's a 6-all tie. Darien trailed by 3 goals in the first quarter of play. They've rallied back-to-back goals here in the fourth. And a timeout by St. Anthony as they'll like to discuss things over as there's 4 minutes even on the clock. Game knotted up at 6s. Keith Weiserick has diagrammed the play which he wants his St. Anthony's offensive squad to execute and put home the 7th goal of the day, because right now we're tied up at 6s with 4 minutes to go in this contest. A barometer game for both sides. One team will walk away with an impressive victory on their resume. Friars 7-1, Darien 6-2, coming off of a tough defeat to Manhasset a mere 2 days ago. They're back on the island, tied up at 6s with St. Anthony's. 5 yards outside the attack box is Locascio, moving towards his right, swinging on the left side. Good on-ball presence by the Blue Wave as that miss comes down harder. 3:30 on the clock now. There's a lefty dodge, looking for a lane. In close, ball loose, and a head-on shot by man Chanenchuk. Chanenchuk puts home the 7th goal of the day. It's a 7-6 St. Anthony's advantage. 3:21 remaining.
Goal number 13, Matt Chanenchuk.
Chanenchuk got his hands free and put it home.
Sean McKenna. Friars lead 7-6.
Friars leading with 3:21 remaining. 7-6 the score. Matt Chanenchuk off the unsettled situation, putting it home. Ball loose at midfield. With the long poles, Tim Stackpole coming up with it, losing it. Kicked forward into the Blue Wave offensive end of the field. And the ball's still loose on the near side. Rolling on the out-of-bounds line, the referee will award possession. A timeout to Darien. And Darien will get possession of the ball. And with 3:05 remaining in the contest, they trail 7-6. Going into the locker room break, the Darien Blue Wave trailed 5-3. They would get a goal from Mabel and Gregory, 1 in the third, 1 in the fourth, to knot up this contest at 5 apiece. Joe Locascio would knot up the go-ahead goal for St. Anthony's to make it 6-5 before Ben Preston will respond right back. And just recently, Matt Chanenchuk, the goal which put ahead the Friars of St. Anthony's, and that's where we stand. It's a 7-6 advantage with 3 minutes remaining. Here's Matthias, the go-to player on this attack line, as he'll circle the crease. And step for step is Dan Seglio, but he can't, as he puts it home, as Richard Gregory is knotted up again. 7-all. 2:47 to go in the contest. The offensive prowess of Case Matthias made that possible as he swung it over to Richard Gregory, who would knot up the scores once more. We're tied for the third time this evening. Huge face-off for both sides. And it's won by the Friars. Stackpole on the near sideline. And a timeout. As Keith Weiserich's squad will talk it over, and let's get a recap of this frantic game back and forth. First quarter of play, Joe Locascio would chip in the first goal of the day before Brian Sherlock and Sean McDonough will tack on two more. It was a 3-0 Friars advantage roughly 2 minutes into play. Darien would respond between two goals between Eric Parnon and Chase Mathias. Greg Madison and Adam Pomper would tack on two more for the Friars of St. Anthony's. And after one quarter play, it was a 5-2 advantage for St. Anthony's. And from that point on, goals have been at a premium. Second quarter of play, Tim Murphy, the lone tally for Darien. That made it a 5-3 score. Third quarter of play, Richard Gregory would make it Graham Mabel would make it a 5-4 score with 15 seconds remaining. Richard Gregory in the third quarter tied it up at 5. And in the fourth quarter of play, it's been similar to the first. Back and forth, the action has picked up as Joe Locascio would give a brief 6-5 advantage for St. Anthony's. Back-to-back goals by both sides will get the advantage back to 7-6. And just recently, Richard Gregory, his second goal of the day and the equalizer. And that's where we stand. It's a 7-all tie, 2:34 remaining in the ball game. The winner of this contest will pick up an impressive win versus a top 10 team in the country. Locascio and Sherlock, they worked that two-man game, and they'll have it straight away. Here's Locascio. 2.5 to go in the fourth. Near side, off to Bernardo. Bernardo, errant pass, turns it over. He was looking for Channinchuk on the near sideline. Gotta imagine that's not what Keith Weiserich diagrammed, as that pass was high over the head of Channinchuk and off back to Darien. 2:14 to go in the contest, tied up at 7s. Darien is going to have a big clear right here as they've struggled on the clear this afternoon, and you could already see that Friar ride is coming hard as they're already trying to double that outlet man, and the goalkeeper, Dylan Torrey, swings it upfield to Bobby Weaver. Weaver will cut it back towards the near sideline and get into the offensive end of the field. So a great job by the Blue Wave, just getting it into that offensive end of the field, and 1:55 on the clock. The game is tied up at 7s. Case Mathias versus Greg Danseglio. Here we go. Mathias moves towards his right, in close, fires and deflected, turned away by Kieran Burke. He was bare in close with the do-it-all attackman, and he closed the door, having none of it. Here's Preston behind the cage. He'll look to circle and fire one underhand. Kieran Burke once more. Burke standing on his head, stalemating a couple of attempts by the Darien Blue Wave, and here comes the clear from St. Anthony's. Burke just looking for the proper pass, looking for an outlet man as there's 1:15 on the clock. Game started at 7. And a shot clock violation as he could not get it over in time. It appeared that he had Sherlock on the opposite end of the field. By the time he let go of that ball, he was a second late. And Darien, once again, here's Mathias moving towards his right. He'll bounce one and connect. Case Mathias, his second goal of the day, gives Darien their first lead of the day. They lead 8-7, 1 minute to go.
Number 4, Case Mathias, the goal is unassisted. Darien leads 8-7.
Mathias took it himself and put it home. And now a big face-off for both squads as St. Anthony's needs possessions. They trail by 1 goal. And Darien will be up with the face-off and move it into their offensive zone. Behind the cage is Preston with 50 seconds on the clock now. Darien looking to bounce back as they lose the ball on the far sideline. Violation on Darien. Ball turned over. So the Friars will have 47 seconds to get the equalizer. They trail 8-7. with 47 seconds to go. Ball in the stick of Kieran Burke. Burke at the top of the attack box. He'll get it across the timeline. Off to Sherlock straight away. Sherlock loses his footing, bounces out of bounds behind the cage with 28 seconds. Backing up with the Friars, they'll keep possession of the ball. 8-7 deficit, 28 seconds on the clock. Behind the cage, near side, they'll work with it now. Circling, here's Locascio, loses his footing, 15 seconds on the clock now. Behind the cage, centering feed to Channing-Chuck, out in front to Sherlock, who loses the ball, rolling towards the far sideline with 10 seconds. 8 seconds on the clock now, down to goal. They've got to force something. Here's Channing-Chuck, moves towards his left, fires and connects. Matt Channing-Chuck snatching victory out of the jaws of defeat. The equalizer with 2 seconds on the clock. We're knotted up at 8. Matt Channing-Chuck, a desperation shot off of his back foot. He's been clutch. He had the goal, which put them ahead 7-6. And now he nets the equalizer. 8-all tie, 2 seconds. And it appears we're headed to overtime. They'll just touch it up at the face-off X. And that's how regulation will end as we're heading to overtime as an improbable goal by Matt Channing-Chuck gets the Friars into overtime. We're knotted up at 8. Extra lacrosse coming. Friars and Darien knotted up at 8. And we're back for a 4-minute overtime period. This game living up to the expectation and then some. Back and forth seesaw, fourth quarter affair. Both squads tied at several points. They were tied up at 5s, 6s, 7s, and 8s. And the latest damage done by Matt Channing-Chuck. He had the last 2 goals in regulation for the Friars. As the team switch sides, Friars going from right to left. Darien going from left to right in their road blue uniforms. As that ball is still loose off the face-off. And it's all the way in the Darien offensive end of the field and scooped up by Tim Stackpole with the long stick. At midfield, the ball momentarily lost by Dan Seglio as he comes up with it back. 3.5 minutes to go. Timeout, Darien. They'll have possession with the ball. And let's just recap a back and forth fourth period of play as Joe Lacascio gave St. Anthony's a 6-5 advantage at 6:47. Ben Preston would respond to make it 6-all. That goal came a mere 6 seconds later. Matt Channing-Chuck with roughly 4 minutes to go put St. Anthony's ahead 7-6. Gregory and Matthias would go back-to-back for the Blue Wave, giving them their first lead on the day. And Matt Channing-Chuck taking a loose ball on the left side and shooting off of his back foot and connecting to fine twine with 2 seconds remaining in regulation and knotting up the game at 8 goals apiece and sending us to overtime, a game which features a multitude of top-end Division I lacrosse players. They're going tit for tat, back and forth. Darien currently controls the ball. They'll move from left to right. We're on the campus of St. Anthony's High School at Cy Donnelly Field. Stephen Florival calling the play-by-play as both squads giving everything they can handle. So to set the table on the field for the Blue Wave, Bobby Weaver, Graham Mabel, Tim Murphy, Case Matthias, Richard Gregory, and Ben Preston. On the far side, here's Matthias. Matthias, step for step. As Matthias goes, so does defenseman Greg Danseglio. And Matthias will work from the far side. He'll spin back towards the middle of the box. Send it a feed over to Gregory. That one goes over his head into the stick of Burke. And now they're going to say push. As Gregory was pushed in the back after he was unable to come up with that feed. So we're tied up at 8 with 3 minutes to go. And Darien once again controlling with the ball. Here's Matthias. Matthias on the right side, top of the box to Murphy, looking to underhand scoop that one through. And Darien will walk away victorious as Tim Murphy puts it home. And they are victorious 9-8 over the St. Anthony's Friars. Darien responds from their defeat on Long Island to Manhasset. 2 days later, they come back to the island and bounce back with a huge win over the St. Anthony's Friars. Final score, 9-8. For everyone involved on the broadcast, I'm Stephen Florival saying good night from the campus of St. Anthony's High School. Final score, Darien 9, St. Anthony's 8.